The Accidental Realtor. Sometimes success happens by accident. You're listening to the latest episode of The Accidental Realtor with Chuck Gallup and Steve Smith. I can't vouch for all the episodes, but this one's pretty good.
Here we are, episode 5 of The Accidental Realtor. Steve, we've been doing this for about a month and a half.
I know. I feel like we're beginning to learn a little bit of what we're doing. It's crazy.
I get a sense that maybe we're getting our groove on. I'm quitting real estate. I'm going to be a full-time podcaster. Rogan, watch out.
I love it.
I want to be on SmartList. I hope they get me going. In fact, we're going to for sure cross-promote on SmartList. That's my favorite podcast. But this is your podcast, people, on real estate things. Whether you're a consumer, a realtor, a team leader, we've got something here for you. We have a really, really exciting guest today. We'll get to him a little later.
Yeah,
let's
be
talk
a nice
some
surprise.
stuff. All right, Steve, let's talk about the market.
Well, let's talk about the market. So here we are. We know in Minnesota there's typically a slowdown, right? It tends to occur once school has started and fall is basically here. So yeah, that's what we're experiencing right now. I think we talked about this the last couple episodes. It just seems like this year the slowdown started maybe even a little bit earlier, maybe in July. And when I say slowdown, it just means some of the properties that like were coming up for sale earlier this year, they'd go pretty quick. Now they're just sitting on market a little bit longer. But that being said, still good. I think we're still hitting it out of the park, Chuck. It's we got our agents that are getting a lot of deals accepted. We're getting a lot of listings taken. So from that standpoint, it's still very good.
Yeah, we are having one heck of a September. October's looking really good. And I always tell people on our team, look at the market because it tells you a lot. But guess what? Our team is really working in its own cadence within this market. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's one of those things too. It just seems like the industry, right? We work with other teams, other agents, other brokerages, and some of them are, what's the word I want to use? They're very sensitive. If it starts slowing up, if it changes at all, it tends to upset their apple cart a little bit. But I think if you know this stuff ahead of time, you know that there's going to be a slowdown. And if you just kind of hone in and focus on the fundamentals, the process that you use or that we use to do business and to serve our clients, it works almost regardless of what the market is.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Oh, absolutely. We really focus on training, on culture. I think the number one complaint for most clients, even other realtors, and we'll tell a story later, is realtors just don't return calls. So if you can just do the most basic function of returning a call or a text, you're already the best realtor in the room.
Yeah. Who knew? Who
would have thought? These things that are in our hands attached to us 24/7 and glued to our eyeballs are actually, they go both ways. You can actually send a message back. How crazy would that be? But I think maybe that's where that comes from. And a lot of our clients are people we've been nurturing for a long time. So the relationship is already established. They're ready to go. And maybe that's why we're so busy. I don't know.
Yeah. I've always said, it doesn't matter what market you're in. You could be on the other side of the country. It doesn't matter what sort of economic shape society is experiencing at the time. There are always people that need and want to move, right? Mm-hmm. That'll never change. Sometimes people have no choice. And so there's always a market where people are looking to buy and sell homes, regardless of what's going on on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Let's talk a little bit. You have a home buyer tip for people.
Yeah, I do. This is kind of one of the fun parts of the podcast for me is coming up with what we think or what I think are the most valuable tips out there. But my tip this week for the home buyers is to have patience. And what do I mean by that? It is so common to work with a buyer and to have them get disappointed because they see a home, maybe online, that checks all their boxes. They fall in love with it. They haven't even seen it yet, but they fall in love with it. And then once they make contact with us, the home isn't always available. and they get very disappointed, uh, almost depressed in some instances. And it's like, oh, that was the one. Or sometimes we're out there showing them the homes physically. They fall in love with it, and maybe it's gone before they have an opportunity to put an offer in on it. But maybe we do put an offer in on it, and we're up against other offers, and they don't win, and they lose that house. They get depressed. My tip is understand there will always be another house. And in most cases, it ends up being a house that you like even better than the one you thought was the end all, right? It is. I can't tell you how many people I've have tell me, I'm glad we waited. You were right. This house is perfect. See, I told you the one you lost out on, you thought that one was perfect. This one's even better. Anyway, that's my tip, is just be patient and know that there's always going to be another property out there. If it didn't happen, wasn't meant to be. That means there's another house out there with your name on it.
I mean, and I think you've seen the stat, but I think it's pandemic times. 80% of the people who bought a house in multiple offers for $50,000 over with no inspection have reported that they regret their decision to buy that home. And that is exactly the point you're hammering home. Don't do something just to do it. Things will come together at the pace they should, and don't become part of that 80%.
Yeah. Furthermore, too, I think, Chuck, that almost speaks to the fact that buyers, and it's natural, sometimes buy on emotion. And emotion can be a good thing because a home does need to feel right. It needs to check the boxes, needs to feel right. But we get this emotion that's all wrapped up in it. And it's like that's part of the tip, too, is maybe just try to pull back the emotions a little bit, right? And not just buying a home, but in life, sometimes emotions get all of us in trouble, right? So just pull back just a little bit.
Absolutely. Okay. I just want to do one little thing. And sorry for the transition here. Our guest is in the green room. So this next little blurb I want to talk about leads directly into our guest. So realtors, this is for you. Go to conferences. I can't tell you how many times and how many meetings I've been to telling our realtors go to conferences, because you're going to be in a room with people much bigger than you. You're going to meet people you won't expect to meet. You're going to learn things you would never have expected to learn. We're not in a microcosm of Minneapolis, St. Paul real estate, and obviously we cover Florida and Wisconsin too. You need to expand and understand what other markets are doing, what other people are doing. So our next guest I met in the NASDAQ suite for eXp when we first went public, and celebrated our win with NASDAQ. And I was celebrating with the eXp executives. I went to Inman, and the NASDAQ stuff happened to be happening. So I joined all the eXp people in the NASDAQ suite. And I was talking to a guy, and I said, we were just having a good time chatting. And I said, oh, and who are you? And he goes, my name's Leo. I'm the new chief technology officer for eXp. Like, oh, great. Just really casual. Well, he went on to become our CEO, as you know. So, and just being in the room with him, just spending some time with him was just a unique opportunity, and all the other people I got to meet there too. But let me just get to our intro here. So we're joined today by Leo Pareja. He's the CEO of eXp. He's been in real estate for over 20 years, but he started as a top producing agent, and he has a history as an agent, but he's built successful businesses. He's now leading one of the fastest growing brokerages in the world, which is eXp. He's known for being an innovator in the industry and for keeping the focus on helping agents succeed. So let's let Leo into the podcast. We're so excited to have him here. Leo, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi, Leo.
Thanks for
How are
joining
you?
us on the Accidental Realtor. We're wonderful. We're excited to have you. We have a lot of
Yes, we are.
questions for you. You've probably been
Let's
through this
get
a few
started.
times. Yeah, let's do it. So you are known for being a top producing realtor beyond what you're doing now. But just briefly, can you tell us, or our audience here, a little bit about your journey that got you to where you are today?
Sure. I started younger than most. I went to college during the year 2000. That's when I started college to do web design and graphic design. So little full circle, because 15 years later I ended up in tech anyway. But that year was the year of the first bubble I experienced, which was the tech bubble. So
Mhm.
I was actually being recruited in high school by companies that don't exist, like WorldCom and AOL, because I grew up in the DC area in the what's called the Dulles Corridor, which was the Silicon Valley of the East. And my freshman year of college, all those opportunities started melting away. So jobs that were once upon a time paying $150,000 went to disappeared or like $40,000. And for context, in 2000, 150,000 is like 400 grand today. So it was a lot of money. So first off, that was the first time I experienced having my cheese moved, unbeknownst to me, which I think is a really interesting rite of passage as a human being, which is very similar to the conversations that I think people are experiencing right now with AI, right? Um, but it's fascinating when I think back of how upset I was, and I was just a child, right? It's like I had my whole life ahead of me. I'm like, my whole plan's ruined. And I have a 10 and an 8-year-old right now, and sometimes when they don't get their way, they think it's a big deal, and I'm like, it's not that serious. Like,
You have no idea, kid. You have no idea.
so I went to a friend's parents' house for dinner, and his mom insisted I read this book, and the book to me was as powerful as the story in The Picture of Dorian Gray, where a book dramatically changes someone's life. And that book was Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I think in real estate, I'm not unique in that experience. And because I grew up in a very traditional family, both my parents have PhDs, highly educated. Um, I was just told go to school, get a bunch of education, and have a career. And my dad worked for the same company for 28 and a half years. So I had no entrepreneurial models in my life. I'd never experienced it. And leverage was a concept that I was never taught. And I think today with YouTube and kind of like the celebrity worship that we have for entrepreneurship that's happened over the last 10 years, which I can talk about that because I think it's also not correct. I never understood of leverage of people, time, and money, right? My first job was at Baskin Robbins and then Outback Steakhouse. So it was like I traded 1 hour of my time for minimum wage of $4.15. And my second job, I was able to get $7, and that was pretty cool. But I'd never understood. It's like, okay, if I can get really good at an activity, I can actually get paid a disproportionate amount. So I got obsessed. I started reading every book I could on real estate. My dad met someone at an investor seminar or at a personal growth seminar that used a script that I think every agent should use. So write it down, which is, have you ever considered investing in real estate passively? Right? Because then it just begs the question, like it either springs curiosity or they smile and tell you they got 6 rentals, right? It's an easy opener to get to a very interesting conversation. But my dad responded with, "No, but my son's obsessed. Will you have coffee with him?" And my dad scheduled me a play date, which was awesome. And when I get there, I had my script ready based on Robert Kiyosaki's journey, where I offered to work for free for the man. And he said, "I actually don't have any time to educate snot-nosed kids," is what he told me, which didn't
Oh my
seem very
God.
nice. But now that I have kids, I understand the snot-nosed reference. But he did say, "I can introduce you to someone who can teach you everything you want to learn about real estate investing." And it was a gentleman out in Colorado. Till this day, I think probably one of the best salespeople I met. And he said, "I can teach you everything you want to know. It's just going to cost you $10,000." So again, adjusted
Big
for
price tag.
inflation, that was a
Big
big price
price
tag.
tag.
So unbeknownst to my parents, my friends, my roommates, I sold my only worldly possession, which was a car I bought and paid for, waiting tables at Outback. It was my prized possession on the planet. And I wired this strange man all my money in Colorado. And I had just enough to buy a old beat up Honda Accord to get to my waiting table job. And the good thing was he was not a criminal. He kept his word, and we signed a coaching agreement that had very specific clauses. And he took it pretty seriously. It was pretty intense on the mindset stuff. He had me read a lot about psychology. And so he was the first person that really framed that human beings make emotional decisions, then justify them logically for me, and just kind of like driving towards a no faster and getting to
Mhm.
the crux of the decision making process, understanding that all sales funnels should be qualified with ready, willing, and able, right? Before we talk about anything, you need to answer these core questions for me. And he was teaching me investing, and his flavor was lease options. This was like 2001, 2002. And so
Wow.
he was making me run ads in the newspaper. That's how old I am in real estate years. That said, I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath lease option for $1,500 a month. And I had 100 people call me on a Saturday. And I did not have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for lease option. What he wanted me to do was to get really comfortable controlling the conversation and
Smart.
find out people's motivation, how much money they had to put down. Because what he wanted me to do is to have a database of people willing to do a lease option. And then I would then be able to turn around and then call investors and saying, hey, I can take this property over subject to.
Mhm.
And 6 months into the relationship, he said I had to get my real estate license, which I emphatically said, that's not my jam. That's not what I want to do. I want to be an investor. And he referred me back to the contract that I signed. He said there was a clause that said wax on, wax off from Karate Kid, which said as long as it was legal and ethical, I had to do what was asked of me. And I did what was asked of me, and I got my license. And the gentleman who turned me down had just bought the rights to the Keller Williams franchise in my market. And he offered to sponsor me, which I thought was special. I didn't realize I just had a heartbeat and a real estate license. But I went and joined his office, and he then made me an offer where he said, hey, I need help. One of two things: you can be paid hourly and help me around the office, or you can join my team and I'll pay you a split, but I'll teach you the business. And I picked the latter because that's how I'm wired. And before I knew it, he found out I spoke Spanish. So he had me running construction crews on flips. I was pulling permits. I learned how to fill in a pool my first week because I live in Florida, where not having a pool is bad for sale, but in Virginia, having a pool is bad because you only use it 2 months of the year, and it's a very litigious part of the country. So the tipping point, and that's a long preamble, was I got into a fight with my landlord about sound volume on a Tuesday, and said I needed to find a new place to live. And I was in the office looking for rentals on the MLS, and he said, go talk to a loan officer down the hall. You don't know that you can't buy. And I said, I'm a child. He said, that doesn't matter. Go talk to him. And he pulled my credit. I had great credit because I paid off a car. And he said, she said, you qualify for an FHA non-occupant co-borrower loan. So you got to convince your parents or someone who's your direct family to co-sign you. And I asked my dad. He said, absolutely not. I asked my mom, and she said, of course, because I'm a Latino mama's boy. But it was my dad who co-signed me. But I bought my first property for $184,000. I got the seller to pay all the closing costs. I asked my dad to lend me the 3% down, which I returned back after the day of closing with my commission. And I ran into 3 rooms out for $500 a month and zero-based my entire housing. That was, towards the end of my sophomore year. I then turned around that summer and sold 11 homes to my fraternity brothers with a simple script, which I wrote, which my hook was, let me talk to your parents for your housing for next year. And then the hook to the parent was, what if I could get you housing for your child for the next 4 years with the same money you're going to spend next semester? Right. So everything is a hook, right? Or if I'm creating content or I'm trying to get an appointment, just like, have you considered investing passively in real estate? It's just, are you curious? Can we sit down and have a conversation? And I made $60,000 on my summer vacation, and blew it on a Mercedes or a BMW, because that's what a 21-year-old does.
Oh, you have to, yeah.
But by my senior year of college, I did $306,000 in GCI. I thought I was God's gift to real estate. I bought a whole bunch of real estate. And then by the financial crisis, I learned I was a creature of a market in the greatest real estate bubble the world had ever seen. Got my ass handed to me, gave it all back. It was 90 days from bankruptcy. Lots of crying, lots of boogers. Decided I wasn't going to quit, and actually called the top 10 KW agents that year. Most of them returned my call. Chad Goldwasher was one of them, and I'm super proud to be in business with him now. And I've told this story when he was in the audience, and he let me come to his office, and follow them around. And I got home realizing that none of these people were any more talented than me, but they were all really good at one or two things. And so
Hmm.
I went back and said, I'm going to do this damn thing. And in 3 years after that, I was the number one KW agent in the world.
In the world. Wow. Yep.
Wow.
That's, it's really interesting. I hear a lot of rags to riches stories, having attended conferences, as I mentioned before you came in. I think they're so important. And it's always the rag to riches story. I've never heard your rags to riches story. I just know you as Leo and that fateful meeting in the NASDAQ suite. Um, I'm your CTO. I'm your chief tech guy, and here I am. And I just appeared. But the theme of this podcast is the accidental realtor. Many of us, or all of us, fell into it for some reason or another. You started basically in diapers, but you fell into it. And so much of it was a combination of your grit and just being in the right place at the right time and putting yourself in the right place and in front of the right people. So I love how that pays off. I just love that.
Well, that's the abbreviated version, right? I've got my ass whooped a whole bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
But and I hope that's the encouraging part about life. Like the highlight reel is the highlight reel because people don't actually hear about your L's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them aren't public. So it doesn't matter. And no one actually cares when you fail. And the one thing about our country is the ethos is of the risk taker. Like this entire country was built on that. Our laws allow for it, right? We have bankruptcy laws. There are other countries where there's debtor's jail or you bring shame on your family, right? We celebrate the risk takers in this country.
That's a really, really good perspective. Yeah, and I didn't even think of that too. I mean, we do. We're an entrepreneurial country essentially, um, based to our founding. Not to get political,
Mhm.
but historical.
No, it's
Uh,
just historically correct.
yeah, Steve.
Yeah. And the funny thing, my takeaway, Leo, is I'd never heard your story. It's a fascinating one, very inspirational. But just before you came on, Chuck and I were talking about just with the home buying process, how people get locked into a particular property. In your case, or in a lot of our cases, you get locked into a certain profession. And even though it was accidental, you had no choice, right? The tech bubble busted, and then it wasn't what you thought or was hoping that it was going to be. And it just kind of forced your hand and you weren't happy about it, but it just sent you in a whole different direction, which even if you're not entrepreneurial minded, sometimes people get sent in another direction, but it's what they do with it.
Well,
Right.
and the interesting part is, like, I had not been in the tech space yet, Steve, but some of the coolest tech companies of our generation came out of the tech bubble bursting, right? And
Yeah.
so in the real estate one, and I do recognize timing and dumb luck as my greatest strength in life. Because I recognize that when the financial crisis happened, I did have 5, 6 years of experience. And I sold enough real estate that I was able to figure out and did foreclosures and short sales and represented hedge funds. Um, so I would encourage everyone, like you can pivot within your space, right? And um, when everything's good, you get more commoditized, right? Like when you can fog a mirror and sell a house, it's so much harder to stand out versus when it's 18 months of inventory and you have a strategy that requires effort, execution, process, repetition. You are not going to lose to someone's second cousin who just passed the test.
Well said.
I love it. Well, I want to drill down on some of your leadership stuff, and that's what I'm drawn to. And you've done just an incredible job as our CEO. I was so excited when they made this announcement. But I just want to talk about the perspective. So you went from being the number one KW agent to some leadership roles within KW, and I'll let you talk about that. And I'm really curious what the genesis is from running a KW office or I forgot what market center. We all came from KW here. From running a market center to running the largest independent uh, online brokerage in the world, and how those translate.
Yeah. So, couple things. One is, it's been a iterative process across the board, right? So I went from I joined a market center. I bought into the market center. I became the youngest broker inside the Keller Williams network. As far as I know, I was running at 200. I was the licensed broker of record at like 23. for a 200-person office. The amount of agents that told me I was their grandchild's age was always fascinating to me. Then I became a team leader, and I think that's when my leadership started to evolve. And it was really during the financial crisis. So being a team leader of like 5 is very different than executing, 600 transactions a year for the federal government, which has crazy KPIs, way stricter than I think even Zillow Flex on net execution to performance on UPB and loss severity. And like I was calculating the amount of money per day the banks were losing so I could perform better. And if I told them to spend $1, I would tell them what their ROI on that dollar was. And I think that was my first transition when I went from I'm a good salesperson to I'm a business operator that has a P&L and I can explain EBITDA and margin. But part of the story is I went from there to I started a hard money lending business that scaled to be a $400 million a year origination business that was tens of millions of dollars in operating income. To then starting a tech company, which is Remine. And I ended up raising close to $48 million. It scaled to 80% of the US. It powers most MLSs. And so I've been a CEO of 5, of 50, of 300, and then now of 2,300 plus full-time employees with 83,000 agents in 27 countries. And the aha is it's all the same, right? We're a tribal species with hopes and dreams, and I'm just very clear. It's like, look, I want to create. I love winning, so I want to be aligned with folks who have the same level of drive. But and again, this is an evolution. In the season of life I'm in, I'm also super clear that this is not my family, right? I think leaders that say that is disingenuous. I look at us as a high performing sports team, and I want to get the best players on the field that are aligned with our strategy. I think we all have family members we love, but we wouldn't do business with them. But I wouldn't fire them. I'll take care of them, right? And so, and I'm super clear. Like I do this for my family, which means that I'm present for them. So, like, you didn't get a time slot before a certain time because I make breakfast and take the kids to school, and I took them to school this morning. And I'll pick them up from school. And if you come visit me in Miami, you guys are more than welcome to drive to my neighborhood and we can have breakfast after drop off or lunch. But I do not have dinner with anybody, period. That includes, anybody on the leadership team because I only have X amount of nights to put them to bed, period. Right? It's a finite thing we have. Yes, my wife and I have date night with friends socially, because I also think investing in that most important relationship is super important. And I think too many of us, kind of confuse what's important. And that thought process is not innate. It came from getting my ass whooped a whole bunch of times and falling off the pedestal privately or publicly and being treated differently. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, none of this shit matters. Like at the end of the day, we're all going to take a last breath. And I just want my bloodline to be there. And so I bring that level of kind of honing everywhere I go, right? Like yesterday, I flew up to DC and spoke at RIS Media, and there was a big award ceremony, and somebody sent me a picture of me being called a luminary or something. I wasn't there. Like I got on stage, I spoke, I held a luncheon for our top agents who I invited, and I spent 2 hours with them Q&A. Got on a 3 p.m. flight. I was home by 7. I was snuggling on the couch with my kids watching reruns of Full House when I got a picture saying that I was getting an award in DC for being a luminary, and I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, who cares? Like, the leader I need to be is for my family.
That's an incredible perspective. And as you may recall, I come from a career of law enforcement, Steve as well. And we missed so many parties and holidays and stuff. And it happens in real estate. And we always tell our young agents, hey, take the weekend off. Set some boundaries, put your phone on do not disturb, or this can get away from you. Don't chase the dollar to and lose time with your family. And I love that perspective. And I'm not hurt that you won't get dinner with me now.
I'm blessed to have been around very successful people from a very early age. And I've been in the practice of asking, you know, people whose net worth is in the very rare air in their 70s. And 100% of the time, every single older gentleman who I aspire to be professionally has looked at me with the most regret in their eyes and said, "Don't screw
Mhm.
up your kids."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's without fail. So I was lucky enough to hear that before I had kids, and even in the building of Remine, I was on the road 200 days a year for like 4 years, and my wife who ran our enterprise sales, Ariana, she was traveling at like 120 days a year. So it almost broke us like mentally and emotionally and physically. So even when Glenn approached me about this opportunity, I was super clear that it's like I will give you guys 110% of what I got. And I think you guys know I show up with intention. But I also like, have you ever seen me out at an event, period? Like at night, I'm in my room. I'm actually most
Yeah.
of the time having room service FaceTiming them.
That's wonderful. And Glenn is the right founder for this as well too, because he gets the balance. And I mean, he pushes agent health, and he always leads the fun run at all of our events. So it's really a culture that we have about built around that, which is great. We also do a lot of transactions, as everyone knows, which is pretty impressive too. I want to shift a little bit just to EXP stuff. So we're known for being innovative, disruptive. What's your long-term vision?
Yeah, so that's a fun question that I actually addressed with the agents yesterday, and Wall Street is the one who asked me the most, right? And so, um, this is interesting because this is the first time I'm CEO, but not the founder, right? Like this is my
Mhm.
first job, which is kind of fun. I've never had a job, and I get to run a public company on my first attempt. But I've been a founder, CEO my whole life, and that's actually why Glenn thinks has shared this works, right? Is because it's in my DNA. I don't have another way of operating. I'm not a corporate person in my own interpretation. Um, but my question to Glenn was, what is kind of the driving vision if you had to sum it up? And he doesn't take more than 10 seconds. He knows the answer, and he says to build the most agent centric company on the planet, right? And
Mhm.
and that is infused into every single decision we make. And constantly, I'm reminded of it as I'm trying to solve certain things. Like, for example, right now we have a lot of broker owners who are in a lot of pain all over the country, like with 3,000 agents, like big operations. And we haven't successfully brought one over of that size. I think we will sooner than later. Like, we've figured out product market fit with individuals, teams, and team ridges. Like, we can do that all day long. We do it all day long, and it's a perfect fit. But some of the struggles that these larger independents or franchises are space, right? Like overhead, staff. And so when we talk, it's like we're the perfect solution for their agents, but not necessarily them. And so one of the decisions I make on a daily basis is staying true to who we serve, right? Like, I am hyper clear that you can't be all things to all people, period. Right. I think the most iconic products in the world don't try to serve all markets. Right. So I believe we're the perfect fit for the highly entrepreneurial agent, because I believe that we're a platform that powers you guys. There are other models out there, and I genuinely mean this with like no judgment, that believe the brand powers the agent, and that's the value proposition. And the agents that are there believe that, right? So if somebody's interviewing us and says, "Well, I need to see the corner office and I need to see the branding you're going to create for me," we're just not the fit, right? Like, we're not going to charge you what they're going to charge you, and in turn, we're going to allow you to own that creative process, and you're going to create the brand and own the brand. Um, and it's just philosophy, right? And so what I obsess over is like, how do I remove friction from the process for the folks who want to build their dream? And the dream you build is actually 100% your call, right? Like, I'm ecstatic for the folks that come here and do 10 or 12 deals and have the balance they want. And obviously, I'm super proud of what Parker Pemberton's doing in your backyard, right? As their number one producer in unit counts and growing, and what his goals are. But there is no one size fits all, right? It's
Mhm.
it's what it needs to be in your family, in your life, and and even in the season of life that you're in, right? Like if Ariana and I did not have a 10 and 8-year-old, we probably would have a tiny condo in Miami instead of a single family home in the suburbs. And we'd
Mhm.
probably spend 2 to 4 weeks in a different city. And I would spend a lot more time with you guys in person. Um,
Yeah.
but in this season of life, I'm not willing to do that. And I still make the same level of commitment to, like, I do this 50% of my days, one to one or one to
Mhm.
many, because I think spending
Mhm.
time with you guys, like yesterday, I got to do it with 30 people in person. Next week, I get to do it with 250 people. Um, and then the following week, I go to San Diego for one day. Like I land in the evening, I do luncheon with all of our EXP NARP agents. I go on stage, and then I'm on a red eye back, just because like I'm obsessed with minimizing the time away from my family. Just
Mhm.
because I know that my 10-year-old, by the time she's 14, it's just like she won't give me the time because she'll have her own individual world she lives in now.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk a lot about, and we talk a lot at EXP about being agent centric. So I'm going to go off script here a little bit, but what do you think would be an agent that wouldn't fit at EXP?
If the service value basket we have is not the one you want, and it could be in a lot of things. So I actually see the industry broken into three big categories right now. One is brand first, uncapped split. And there's a bunch,
Mhm.
legacy and new.
Mhm.
We fit in, I think, what has become the biggest part. And again, new and legacy. So us, KW, Remax, Real, all cap and split, virtual to legacy. And the third one is flat fee, virtual and office, right? So you have legacy and cloud in all of them, almost except the first category. Um, and the reality is, one is they all work. No one real estate company has 100% market share. So, like, I'll say that, like, even in the height of KW and Remax, I think depending on the agent count for that year, none of them got above 10 to 15%, right?
Mhm.
So, no one will ever get to 100% or 50%. So, first of all, just be okay with that. Like, there is a whole bunch of people who are never going to be wearing our jersey, and that's perfectly okay. They're still my friends. You're still going to cooperate with them in the market. So, just that's the first thing I would say. Like, it's not you're with me or you're against me. Like, it never needs to be like that. And you never. There's folks that said never EXP who are proudly wearing the jersey today. And I'm probably the three of us, right? Like when the first time I heard about it, I was like, this is doesn't make any sense to me, right? And all of us who are here, our regret is not coming sooner, right? Um, so for the folk that's not for us, it's just I'm very okay with a square peg round hole, right? Like I've been on calls where someone's like, I need this, I need that. I'm like, I don't offer any of that. Like I got strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla, and you want rum raisin. I don't sell rum raisin, and I'm not going to make it. I don't have a demand for it. I don't want it. I don't think it's the margin fit for my business model. And that's okay. That doesn't make me think less of you. It's just if I'm the best in the world at chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, um, I don't need to have 31 flavors.
That is a wonderful perspective.
Wow.
I mean, it's
It is. I love the way you frame that.
yeah. I mean, just keeping the vision forward.
And by the
It's
way, this
not
is what I encourage
realistic
you
to
to do
be.
in your businesses. This is
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
think every agent should do.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right, like, I
It's you
early on
can't.
realized I did like, I remember going to KW, and Chris Heller is one of my closest friends in the industry, and he's here now, but I remember the
Mhm.
first time I saw him role play on stage to, 10,000 people. First of all, I was in awe. I was like, "This is a human superhuman up there." But immediately I said, "I can't do that." Not because I can't learn it, it's because it
Mhm.
robs me of my joy. My eye cannot handle that. I would rather play in traffic than do that. Right. And then I went to a Gene Rivers breakout who said, why go on a listing appointment where I can get one listing when I can get 50 listings? And I said, that's on the menu? Like we can do that? And then I dedicated my career to going and taking 10, 50, 100 listings at a time. Right. Because what I did is no matter what market cycle I was in, whether it was financial crisis and it was banks or a healthy market, and it was hedge funds and developers. I was like, I'm much better at building a deep relationship, which, by the way, comes with a ton more accountability. So it's not for everybody where, if I say it sells for this, I'm being judged on it. And if I'm wrong, I don't get more business, right? But just figure out how you're wired, right? It's probably the most important suggestion I make to everybody. It's like, have a deep introspection. And again, like on purpose with tests and book and read and seminars. I think one of the coolest unlocks in life is when you figure out who you are early. And that's where, again, dumb luck, my dad and mom loved on me and convinced me I could do anything I could in the world and encouraged me to take risks. And you can put it your mind, you can do anything you put your mind to. So I recognize how lucky I am that I was raised by humans like that. Figure out your passions and you'll never work a day in your life, I think is wrong. I think is once you figure out what you're really good at, you get really excited and passionate about it, right? And like I've done it in sales and tech in corporate America now, and like I love winning. I'm unabashedly aware of it, and again, it's not at all cost. I mean, I definitely respect the process and the boundaries, but it's fun to be in a high performing team that wins, and that's why I love spending so much time with our high performing teams that win, right? It's part of what I enjoy doing. And I love looking at people's businesses and dissecting it with them and scaling them. And again, I love spending time with someone doing 25 deals a year as a solo agent, netting $700,000 a year and optimizing that. So winning is what you define as winning. It doesn't mean more. It doesn't mean more time, right? It means what it means to you.
That's wonderful. I love how you don't leave these teams or these agents in the closet and go, we have this, we have this. You actually take them out and spend time with them and pour into them. And it's even by coming on this podcast. I mean, we're not a massive team. We do well. We're pretty proud of what we do, but you're on our podcast and pouring wisdom into us and our listeners. So I love that. I go back to that very first meeting with you before I had any idea who you were. I just instantly liked you. I know you instantly liked me. Of course you did. And that's that. It just speaks to who you are.
I appreciate that. And again, I think if we have a concentrated effort in getting to know who we are, right? It gives you a comfort in your own skin, which kind of, early on, I had an aha when I was like in 18, 19 after a personal growth seminar that pretty much we're all like self-actualized, right? They're somewhere around 12 to 16, right? There's like that formative experience that makes you who you are and gives you your like primal wound that you're trying to overcome your whole life, right? You're both in law enforcement. There was something that happened to you where you wanted to protect, right? And so when you can actually understand that in every interaction when someone's being a bully or something, you can actually just see them for that like insecure teenager or little kid. And I think it gives you a whole lot of empathy, right? It's like, we're all living for the first time. Like we're all just doing the best we can. And I think when you show up with that type of energy, people feel it. And then you put them at ease. And like, I lead with authenticity no matter who I'm in front of. And like the reaction most of the time is people's guard comes down and then they start being authentic. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, that was a really awesome conversation. I got to know that person as a human being. Another thought that's really aware in my mind all the time is that most interactions between two human beings is the other one waiting for them to stop talking so they can, get their point across or their pitch, right? And whether it's in a sales situation, like my approach is, hey, I want to make sure you walk away with value in this interaction. What are the questions that are unanswered? I mean, there's some curiosity because you're in front of me, right? Whether you're buying software, real estate, a house, you want to join our company. So, there is curiosity. You wouldn't be on the phone with me. What are the unanswered questions you have? Because what I know is that you probably already know every question about the model or the opportunity. Fill in the blank, because I think this applies in anything in life. And I don't want to pitch you on a feature or product that you don't even want, right? What are the unanswered questions that I'm uniquely qualified to answer? And we can spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes on the one or two things that you're unclear about. And the amount of times that you're like, well, why does this work that way? It's like, actually, that's not how it works. Let me explain how that works. Because a lot of us make assumptions of what's most important to us and then focus the entire conversation on something that's not relevant to them, right? And the sentence that always comes to mind, and I got this from Brian Buffini at like 28, sitting in a Buffini event, said, "No one lays in bed at night worrying if Steve or Chuck have enough to eat. Not because they don't love you, because they're up in bed worrying about feeding their own kids." And so that's why you need to ask, right? Like, hey, by the way, if you know anyone wants to buy or sell real estate, please send them to me, right? Um, and go a step further and say, and don't give them my number. Call me, give me their cell phone, and let them know that I'll be calling them because I want to give them the same level of amazing service you experience with me. Is that fair? Right? Like, be very specific with the ask. And even when you're meeting a buyer or seller for the first time, just say, oh, by the way, most of my business comes from referrals, if that's a true statement. And what you'll experience during this transaction is I'm going to be super present for you. I'm not going to be checking my phone. I'm not going to be texting. I'm not going to be DMing. And the way I can do that is because people like yourself have a great experience. And I will, from time to time, stay in touch with them and ask them if they've come across anyone who wants to buy or sell real estate. Is that okay with you? Right? Because then you're asking for permission.
A really, really good take on it. I harken back to some. I have a relative in particular will call me. Hey, I want to talk. We get on the phone. And he talks for 45 minutes. I don't say a word. At the end, he goes, "That was a great conversation." And I think to myself, to him, it was. He got to talk. He left feeling good. He's going to call me when he needs real estate. He's going to call me when he needs help. To him, that was a great conversation. So that's okay too. You have to meet them where they are. Some you got to meet them where they are. I love that. Well, I know we've taken up a ton of your time. Just what is, if you had to boil it down to one sentence, what advice would you give to an agent in this crazy market? Or not one sentence. Let's say a paragraph.
Well, I think I already answered it. I would, first of all, have a very deep, well, I'll give you a more tough love answer, which is, I think, an exercise that every agent should do every year, which is to calculate their hourly rate. And you do that by taking your 1099 divided by 2,080, right? Which is the labor statistic of what full-time employment looks. And you should always hold yourself accountable to your loved ones, right? If this chosen profession we do is hard and takes you away from your family nights and weekends, right? Like, the experience I have is from a place of privilege because I lived like nobody else for 2 decades. So I could raise my kids like this. And I was hyper aware of it since I was 16, which is weird, but like, that's how it was. Like, I knew it's Latino, I'm going to have a bunch of kids. Like, that's what I wanted. But if you are struggling and you can make equal to or greater living with more balance, you probably should ask yourself once a year if the sacrifices you're willing to do are fair to you and your family. I know when I say that, sometimes that hits people in the stomach, and it's not meant to be rude. It's meant to be authentic, right? Like, are you being fair to yourself and the people around you, right? You get health benefits, you get health insurance, you get a vacation. So that's the first question in a tough market. And some people get relieved when I say it because they're like, man, I needed permission to have that conversation with myself. But again, I want it to be from the point of, okay, I make a living that makes sense. What do I do all day? And that is basically what I do every day. And the aha that's interesting, that people think like I have a different set of schedule than I did when I was selling homes. It's not. I make my calls, I have conversations, I close transactions, or, whether we're acquiring a business, selling a business, doing an enterprise deal, bringing over an independent brokerage team. And so the closing is bringing them on board. But the maintaining of the relationship is the exact same, whether it was my customers who bought a home from me or you guys, where I do this half the day. and
Mhm.
pour into you guys, right? Because it's a force multiplier, right? Like you guys are creating content, you can then share clips of how I think, and this type of content we can then repurpose and deploy with the message that we're trying to get out there. So understand who you are, understand a way of generating business that's aligned with your gifts, right? Not the other way around, right? Like figure out what you're naturally good at, then hone it and turn it into a skill. And when you can do that, I think you have an exceptional business.
Really well put.
Yep. Excellent.
Great tip for this market, which is challenging at best, and opportunistic as you've built an entire career of seizing on opportunity. So it has been wonderful to have you on, Leo. I really appreciate your time. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate your leadership.
My pleasure. Thanks for being my partners.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you,
Everybody,
Leo.
Leo Pareja, eXp Realty. Thanks so much. Wow. I've actually never heard most of that. I did not know where he came from and what he's got the rags to riches story. I didn't know that even existed. So
No, he really does. I know you've had a connection with him for quite some time. I assumed you knew his story as he was telling it, and I was simply amazed by it. I really was.
yeah, it really fits in with our theme. We're the accidental realtor, as I mentioned, and it's because everybody fell into this job one way or the other. Now he fell in it. I mean, he practically grew up with a real estate pen in his in his hand when he came out of the womb. But most of us fell into it. He's kind of fallen in and out of it in many different ways, and really has built some impressive stuff. Remine is a huge part of our industry. He created it. That's impressive.
Yeah. I tell you, one of my takeaways on this, Chuck, I don't know if you identify with this. The older I've gotten, the less impressed I have become with people that I've known in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know if it's because we reach a certain level of knowledge or wisdom, or maybe we get swallowed up with our own accomplishments that maybe equal or even surpass the people we looked up to at one point. Right? I mean, I think that applies to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I just find that there's less and less people that I really look up to. But when we get someone like Leo on, I just find myself absolutely captivated, and it's like, wow, it's such a higher level, than most in terms of what he's done with his mindset. And clearly he's the person for the job, right? All sorts of organizations people can look at and go, how did that person get to that position? They should not be there. Leo is so impressive, and it's just so abundantly apparent why he's our CEO and why we've been doing so well.
Yeah.
Amazing man.
Agreed. And what I really like out of that, and it's something we preach a lot as team leaders, and it's something I preach to all around, but it's balance, having a life, stepping away, turning your phone off, saying, I can get to that text later. Uh, Setting a goal that's realistic. It doesn't have to be own the world. Be realistic. He said, we'll never be the biggest real estate company in the world because no one can. So let's not even try. Let's hyper focus
Yeah.
what we're doing, and that is what we're gonna be the best at that.
Right.
Just incredible. What a great honor to have him on the show. That was great.
It really was. Now I look forward even more so going to Miami so that we get a little bit more of his time when we're there.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, it's gonna be usually I don't know 7,000-10,000 agents go to this conference, so it's somewhat intimate. It's also massive, and you can take advantage of all that. Really, I'm sure we'll have a lot to say when our conference comes up.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to tell one story, just a little bit, just wrapping things up here. We always like to tell a little nugget or a story. In this case, I just want to talk about an agent who submitted an offer on a property I have in Florida. Didn't call me ahead of time, never heard of this agent. Just all of a sudden in my inbox, there was an email saying, attached, please see my offer. Of course, I do what any good realtor does, and I tried calling the agent, no answer. Texting the agent, no answer. Emailing the agent, received your offer. Can you give me a call, please? No answer. Call, text, email, call, text, email. Do that for about 3 days. Then the agent called me back. I was at dinner. I said, I'll call you after dinner. And amazingly, she said, yes, I'll be around. Call me after dinner. So I did that. And I said, hey, I want to tell you one thing before we sign this thing. We do have something I have to disclose to you, and I did that. And she said, let me call my buyer. He's been eagerly asking me about this property, and I'll call you back. And that was a week ago. I've called, text, emailed, voicemailed, call, text, emailed, voicemailed, call, text, emailed, voicemailed. Nothing. Crickets. And, it kind of harkens back to what Leo said, but this is a relationship business. And this is about competence and communication and relationships. If nothing else, that agent, obviously the agent or the offer has since expired, but the agent has done so much damage to that relationship. I would never advise my client to take an offer from that agent and expect it to go smoothly, because communication is garbage. So
Yeah, we've talked about this hundreds of times. It's lost on me what goes through agents' heads like that. I cannot comprehend that. And clearly, I mean, I don't know this agent, but just based on what you're saying, they should not be in the profession, shouldn't be in the job.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is absolutely great. And by the way, she does a lot of deals. I looked her up. Does a lot of deals. It's crazy to me. I don't know how you do it, but yeah, that's been it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an incredible episode of The Accidental Realtor. This one's going to be long, so we won't drag it on. But thanks for listening. You can find us everywhere you catch your podcasts. Catch us on our social media. Look us up on theaccidentalrealtor.com. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Accidental Realtor. Frankly, I can't believe you made it through the whole thing. Way to go. I'm your announcer, Rusty Gatenby. Chuck has me tied up and held hostage in his basement. No kidding. Please help me. See you next time.